Good evening. My name is Vicki Pulis. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar about Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, which is a truly amazing youth program offered by Districts 5190 and by Districts 5180. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelists this evening. With us tonight from the Rotary Club of Yerington, we have the Executive Director of RYLA, Steve Singer. Steve has been involved with RYLA for many years, served as a counselor, as a co-director, and now as the Executive Director for RYLA. And also with us tonight from the Rotary Club of Sparks is Joe Donahue, who's been involved with RYLA since 2005 and is the master of our RYLA website. Joe and I actually ran the camp together in 2006, the first year at Grizzly Creek, and Joe is certainly one of the most knowledgeable people that there is about our RYLA camp. So Steve and Joe, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vicki. This is Joe speaking, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all about my very favorite Rotary program at Camp RYLA. What I'd like to do is give you sort of a background of the camp, where it came from, and how it operates. And then I'm going to turn it over to Steve and ask him to describe the actual program itself and give you some pointers on how best you can, your club can best capitalize on the program. This is our training program, Rotary's program for leaders, and we emphasize citizenship, leadership, and personal growth. It's been a program of Rotary International since 1972. And this program instructs each district to decide on its target audience and also to design the program to fit that audience. In various districts, we'll have an audience of young people from middle school to college or even beyond. Our district has decided to focus on incoming high school seniors. So we have juniors exiting juniors in the summertime just before they go back to school as high school seniors. Our Camp RYLA organization is really two districts, 5180, which is the Sacramento area, and 5190. We are a registered corporation, 501c3. The program is self-sustaining, which means that we do not use district funds at all. We use the funds that we collect from the clubs to run the program each year. We have a board of directors, and the board of directors consists of the district governor line from the district governor nominee to all the way to the past district governor in each district. So there are 8 members of the board from the district governor line. The chairman position rotates between the district each year. So this year, our chair is Vicki Pulis, and the other district's district governor becomes the secretary for the year. In addition, there is a standing RYLA committee that we are part of, and the committee has an executive director. That's my partner in this presentation, Steve. There are 2 co-directors for each camp, and we're running 3 camps these days. Our responsibility is to register the kids. Our duty is to go and generate attendance, generate demand among the clubs, recruit really great Rotarians to be counselors at the camp. Each year we review the content of the program to make sure that it's as good and optimal as it can be. We hire the program directors, and we also contract with the facility itself. I just did that to give you an idea of what it looks like from the top of that, and now you won't have to do that at all. I would like to introduce our program directors who have been with us since the very early days. We are really blessed, in my opinion, to have these 2 people within our geography. Dean Wellams has been a leadership trainer for quite some time. He's very active as a sports coach, was a director in the Leadership Reno Sparks youth program. That's how we found him. And fortunately, when Vicki and I presented this opportunity to him, he not only swallowed the bait, it went all the way down, and he was hooked. He is a member of the Sparks Rotary Club, and his wife, Rochelle, who was a high school teacher at Worcester, is called to do school assembly programs all the time. She was a RYLA counselor. I'm proud to say she's a Paul Harris Fellow. And between those two people, they bring a level of energy that never drops. If you think about having 100 17-year-olds in a room, it's a huge benefit to have those two people alternating on the stage because they never let the energy level down. We're really very blessed to have them with us. And so from this point, I'd like to turn it over and have Steve talk about the program itself.
Hello, everybody. This is Steve calling in from Yerington. Thanks for being here this evening. And we'll talk a little bit about what it is we do at RYLA. RYLA begins when the buses arrive on Monday morning. Within minutes of arrival, students are being grouped into their work groups and being ready for their first activity, which is a flag treasure hunt. We have morning sessions every day. Our principal guest speaker is a gentleman by the name of Phil Boyd, who works with the students on Monday evening, doing a number of exercises, ice-breaking exercises, so that the students quickly gain trust working and being close to one another. And he introduces several of the key leadership concepts. Monday evening we talk about RYLA and the four-way test. And we have specific sessions every morning of the week. I should note at this point that there's very little free time during the course of a day. Breakfast usually starts at 8 o'clock, and between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, there's typically only about an hour and a half of what one would call free time or leisure time. We have afternoon sessions during which small groups get together to work on specific tasks, and principal activity, or kind of the cornerstone of the week or the midpoint of the week, is our ropes course, which is conducted on Thursday. We have a number of activities throughout the week. A principal activity is a process called Emergenetics, which is the online personality profile that all of the students complete prior to coming to camp, and forms the basis for their grouping into work groups.
Steve, I had a quick question. Pardon me.
Yes.
You mentioned the bus. Can you explain about the bus?
Yes. Typically there's about 100 students at each camp, some coming from, typically about 60% of the students come from District 5190, the remainder from 5180, and most of the 5180 students and some of the 5190 students arrive by bus. The other students are transported to the camp by Rotarians, following the 2 deep rule, which basically means that if there's only one student in the car, there'll be 2 Rotarians. If there are 2 students or more, then it's satisfactory to have just 1 Rotarian. So those buses typically arrive at about 12:45. Students begin arriving by car about 11 o'clock in the morning, 11:30. The buses arrive at about 12:45. It's 5 minutes of utter pandemonium as the students exit the bus and join the crowd, get themselves quickly registered, and then the first activity involves one student, the first arriving student from each of 10 work groups, whose responsibility it is to find the other 9 students in his or her group, which, as you can well imagine, forces kids out of their shell immediately and starts to bind them together very quickly. Daily activities include numbers of different kinds of leadership and motivational activities. Again, we discuss ethics regularly throughout the week. There are all kinds of social interactions. We have what are called breakthroughs that happen rather spontaneously during the week when students have aha moments recognizing that certain aspects of their life or personalities have been holding them back from achieving the kinds of things that they would love to think they could accomplish. And so there are regularly throughout the course of the week some rather exciting moments when students have these moments and typically share them. We have evening sessions every night after dinner. In most cases, these are what one would call work sessions as opposed to play sessions. We do have one evening when we have a square dance, and at the end of the week on Friday, we have what's called a bike program. This is an opportunity for students to give back to the community something of what they've learned. Students assemble bikes, and then we typically bring a small handful of disadvantaged children from some community to participate with us for a couple of hours, receive bicycles, and learn a little bit about what it is we're doing at camp. And I think the teenagers get as much or more out of the experience than do the young children. On Saturday morning, there's a final activity conducted by Dean and Rochelle, which kind of wraps the week up and sets the stage for graduation and then a lot of hugging and crying. Here you see a chart of our growth from 2005 when Joe and Vicki first brought the camp to Grizzly through 2014. The bar in blue represents the participation of 5180 students, 5190 students, and the red bar on top represents the number of students from 5180. You'll see that our growth has been sustained at roughly 10 to 15% annually. Last year we had 286 students. This year we believe we'll have 300. This chart, I should point out, represents $1.25 million in contributions by Rotary clubs in the two districts to support all of these students. Rather phenomenal amount of money when you think about it. This is a copy of our daily schedule. Each counselor and staff person gets a copy of this, and then there's a similar schedule for students. As I mentioned, we arrive early on Monday. Actually, camp staff and counselors arrive on Sunday for orientation. Students begin to arrive by noon on Monday. We immediately launch into activities, and as I mentioned earlier, we stay busy all the week. There is in the bottom middle of the chart, there's a little green band of snacks and recreation time, and typically no more than an hour, hour and a half a day. We keep these kids going, and we're blessed to have Dean and Rochelle, who between the two of them have as much energy or more than all other 100 kids, and keep everything moving, keep it exciting. It's a remarkable experience to see 100 students sitting in a room, 17-year-olds sitting in a room on the edge of their chair, attentively engaged, not fidgeting, and really being present. In summary, we believe, and I'm sure you do, otherwise you wouldn't be participating in this webinar, that RYLA is really one of the best investments that your club can make. As I pointed out, $1,200,000 has been spent over the last 10 years to support this camp. As Joe pointed out, we're self-sustaining. We balance a budget each year of a couple $100,000. Clubs are currently paying $675 to send each student. There's no limit to the number of students that a club can send, although we do have an upper limit this year of 300 students because that's how many beds we have available over the 3 weeks. One of the things we've noticed over the years is that some clubs get actively involved in choosing students for camp. They go to the high school, they interview students, they talk to them, they have conversations, and then they pick the students. Some clubs don't participate at that level at all. Rather, they let a high school counselor or somebody at the school dictate to them who should be going to RYLA. We would like to urge you, the members of your club, to get actively involved in this. Go to the schools, interview the students yourselves. Do it. It's a good experience for the students to go through formal interviews. In a few minutes, you'll see some of the resources we have that will help you in this process, such as the student interview form that will give you some suggestions on questions you can ask. There really is no perfect RYLA student. It's up to the club to decide whether they want to send the student body president and high school football quarterback, or if they want to send students that they think perhaps could benefit more from learning some leadership skills, students who are likely to emerge as leaders but haven't had the opportunity. We leave that decision up to you. You can ask the campers from last year for suggestions of high school juniors that they know who might be good candidates. And lastly, one of the problems, what I think is a problem, and it's a problem nationwide, is that girls are more engaged than boys in these kinds of activities. Last year we had two girls for every boy, and that's been pretty much the case for the last several years. We'd really like you to consider sending equal numbers of girls and boys. We believe the program would be even better if we had something closer to a 50-50 mix.
So I have a couple of comments from our audience. If I could break in for just a moment, Steve.
Yes, please do.
The first came from Elizabeth Cavasso in Alturas, and her comment is, "Way to go, Rotary, a tangible investment in youth and the future." So thank you, Elizabeth, for that comment. And
Elizabeth served as counselor last year and was a great addition to our program. We're looking forward to working with her again this year.
Yeah, she says she already has her counselor application in, along with her sister and brother-in-law are also signing up.
Did last year too.
And then from Lee Mattias, he's saying, for those listeners who've never been a counselor, you are missing out. Counselors get as much out from the week as the students, and maybe even more, I would say, Lee. Age is not an issue. Several counselors are in their 60s and 70s. So we've got some real-life testimonials from counselors going on right now. Thank you, Lee.
And Lee, who is in the upper age range, is at the top of the tower every year.
Now, I'm not sure we should be sharing upper age range here.
I was a little discreet.
So thank you. Any more questions, please keep typing those in, or you can raise your hands. Thank you very much.
So we reached the point where we're going to do a little bit of a summary. It's important to engage these students once they've come home. We would urge you to invite them to your club and hear them tell you about their experience. One of the things each student does on the last day of the camp on Saturday is to write a letter home to the club, and those letters typically reach you within a couple of weeks of the end of camp. Invariably, these letters include phrases such as, "This has been the most amazing week of my life. It's been a life-changing experience." We hear that all the time. In my own club here in Yerington, and what I've heard from other people, there's always there frequently are very tearful and emotional presentations made at the Rotary clubs when these students are invited to share what they've experienced, and we think it's beneficial for all concerned. So you might invite them to participate in some of your club projects. We do that regularly. Some of our students a few years ago came home and started an Interact club. You might want to send them a copy of your club newsletter if you have one. You might encourage them to apply for other Rotary International programs. I know of at least one young lady who was at RYLA camp last spring who recently was accepted into the Rotary Youth Exchange program and will be going to Brazil in August for a year. And then you can also have them participate in the send-off of new RYLA campers the year after they've attended camp. We urge all of you to consider volunteering as a counselor. If you're interested, there's information at the Rotary website, which we're going to look at next. We have two websites. One that's
Steve?
Pardon me.
Could I break in for just a moment?
Yes.
We have Kim Mazaris, and she's typed in something about counselors, but I was thinking she might want to just address the group personally. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Kim is our counselor coordinator.
Yes, let me unmute Kim for a moment. So Kim, you are live.
Ooh, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I am the counselor coordinator this year for RYLA. I'm also one of the camp co-directors. Not sure which camp yet. We haven't decided on all of that. But I have about 21 applications in for counselors right now. We need 10 to 12 counselors per camp. I would love it to be able to say we have got all the counselor applications in. So if you are thinking about it, if you are interested, I would say get those applications in. Because once we get all of ours, we'll start shuffling folks around, and anybody who comes in later will be waitlisted. So if you are interested, get your application in early. We have a blast.
Great. Thank you, Kim.
All of you. Yeah.
I'm going to mute you again. You were fading in and out just a bit, so I heard you say that people should get their counselor applications in as quickly as possible and that you're still looking for about a dozen. So I think Steve's going to talk a little bit about that on when he talks about the website. So thank you, Kim.
Right. So we have two websites, as I pointed out. One is specifically designed for campers, parents, and schools, and then a second website, the Rotary-only website, which is accessible to members of the committee, RYLA reps from various clubs, and we'll take a look at that next. Before we go there, just to amplify a bit on the counselor process, not so much the process, but the counselor opportunity. We typically have one counselor for each 10 students. Students are grouped in, obviously, by sex into cabins, so there'll be 10 girls in a cabin. There'll be one female counselor associated with each of those cabins, and the same obviously is true for men. And finally, I would say that, and I think all adults who have experienced camp will tell you that they are deeply involved in the week activities. They're not just bystanders. They're not just they're not just chaperones, but they're actively engaged with the students. Our rule is if you're in the main meeting hall during an activity, then you're involved in it. You're fully participating, and it's great to see young people working with adults and growing close and forming bonds of trust and friendship.
So, Steve, I do have a question. Lisa Westerland from Tonopah is asking if we have problems finding enough counselors for the program. How would you answer that?
I would say that yes, indeed. Sometimes we do have problems finding counselors. There have been some years where at the last minute we found ourselves short because somebody who had previously committed can't make it for one reason or another. So though I've not been involved in the counselor selection process myself, I would assume that Kim would be looking for standby counselors in addition to the roughly 30 or so counselors that we'll need.
Well, and as I understand, we're always looking for new people to bring in for new ideas, and we have a preponderance of girls in the camp, and so we tend to be looking for more female counselors, as I understand. So
that is so, and the committee and those of us involved with the program recognize the importance of bringing in new individuals each year. We don't want this to become a dynastic situation with the same counselors coming back year after year. There certainly is a core of returning counselors, but every year we typically have somewhere between, maybe 5 and 10 new counselors. And there's a distinct possibility that in 2016 or 17, we will move to a fourth camp and have even greater need. Joe, you want to flip it?
okay, so I have a question on what kind of training is required to be a counselor.
Typically, the training involves a day-long training on the Sunday before the camp begins. We would ask you to be there by about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. We work with either Dean and or Rochelle Wellams, who have specific trainings involved. You will receive a packet of information from Kim with a great deal of information on what your responsibilities will be at camp. You'll have that well in advance of camp. We historically have not had trainings prior to that Sunday. We will not this year, but in following years we might. Typically, though, since each camp has a core of returning counselors during the course of the day on Sunday, we can bring the new counselors in so that they feel intimately involved and connected and comfortable with the program.
So a question from Carl Chrisman is, can a non-Rotarian spouse of a Rotarian be a counselor?
Yes, indeed. And when Joe first started out, he actually mentioned that the counselors were Rotarians. But we've, over the years, had a number of non-Rotarian counselors. I think, to be perfectly candid, we would probably prefer to have Rotarian counselors, but we have had many non-Rotarian counselors. We've had some counselors come who were not Rotarians who became Rotarians. So absolutely.
Yes, we actually have had Rotarians join after being counselors. You're right.
That's right. So anybody, if any of you know someone who you believe might be interested in the program, have them contact Kim, submit an application, and there's a good chance that they'll be asked to participate. Here you see a slide. This is from the CampRYLA.org website. This is a website that is broadcast. Information about this website goes to all the students involved, as well as the counselors and families and schools. And there's a great deal of information at this website. There's camper information. What should I bring to camp? The dates are here. Frequently asked questions, photos and videos. There's a great video here that was produced several years ago by Phil Boyd's son. A real professional job and well worth looking at. And if you go to CampRYLA.org, camp-ryla.org, you'll see that. And then there's a second website, which is camp-ryla.org/Rotary. We don't broadcast this address quite as much. This particular website is specifically designed for RYLA chairs and RYLA Rotary chairpersons. You will see under information, we have a trifold RYLA brochure that you can print and use to distribute to prospective students. There's guidelines for the chairs. There's a calendar with important dates for the club chairpersons to bear in mind. There's a map to Grizzly Creek. There's council information. There's a PowerPoint. And there's a link to the Camp RYLA homepage, the camp-ryla.org. Then, more importantly, there are some forms. The first form is a student application form. It's a generic application that's to be used strictly between the club and the student. It's something that you might hand out at the high school to a large number of students, gather them, and use them for your selection process. There's also a student interview form with some sample questions that we think would be important to ask prospective candidates. Then we have Club Reservation Form 5180, 5190. These are the forms that need to be filled out by your clubs during the fall of each year, hopefully no later than January 15th, and transmitted either to me or to Angela Speece, who is with us this evening, who is the registrar for 5180. And these are the forms that indicate to us, along with your payment, how many students you'll be sending to camp, and allows us to put the money in the bank and get ready for the camp. Then sometime around the 1st of February, you'll go back to the site and you'll pull down the camper registration form, either for 5180 or 5190. This is a 3-part form that requires a number of signatures, doctor's certificate, medical information, releases of that sort. These forms need to be filled out very clearly and legibly. They come to me and Angela. We have to be able to decipher them, get the information into a massive database that drives this whole project. And by the way, this is a database that was created many years ago by Joe Donahue, who I like to refer to as the godfather of RYLA. and without this particular database, this camp wouldn't be possible. It allows us to keep track of everybody who's going to be there and to communicate with them.
I have a few comments. We've got a very active group of participants today, so I have a few comments if I could break in for just a moment.
Yes.
So let's see, from Chris Wyatt, she says, RYLA campers from past 10 years or more, still mention RYLA as a life-changing experience in their life. So that's a wonderful thing to share. And a question from Karen Shamamoto is that our RYLA camps and program are fantastic, and both the districts have done a great job keeping the standards high, motivating students and adults. Some other RYLA districts have lowered the age of their RYLA camps from juniors to sophomores and freshmen, the objective being to provide more high schools and communities with the benefit of these student talents. Have we ever discussed lowering the age of our RYLA campers? How would you address that?
During the years that I've been associated with the committee, we have never had that discussion. In fact, we've been rather rigid about only accepting high school juniors into the program. It's certainly something that that could be considered at the committee level and at the board level. We all know Karen, and I would ask Karen to maybe communicate with us and share with us some of what she's learned about some other districts, and we could certainly have a conversation to discuss the pros and cons of inviting students of different high school age.
Okay, and then Kim Mazaris just wants to reiterate or reinforce that she is a little short on female counselors right now, and she's always looking for backup or counselors who can serve in the case somebody drops out at the last minute. And so otherwise, she said we've been answering the questions about counselors pretty well. So
great.
Okay.
Finally on this website of great import, you'll see a report section. So there's a reservations report and a registrations report. Each week on Friday through the reservation period, I send a report to
Sent to Joe.
Joe, having a senior moment here. I send it to Joe. Joe uploads it so that if you have any questions about whether or not we've received your reservations and or your money, you can go click on this reservations report and find out. Remember, it's updated every Friday. And then during the first part of the year, February through April and May, Angela and I endeavor to enter registration information into the database the same day that we receive it. And on Friday of each week, we post a new registrations report where you can go, if you have any questions about whether or not we've gotten it done, you can see that. You'll also see on that registrations report a note on whether or not your students have completed the all-important, very important Emergenetics profile. We have a tough time, corralling 300 kids via email and getting them to get these Emergenetics profiles done. They're critical to the success of the program, and I'm happy to say that by 10 minutes after 12 on each Monday, we've finally gotten all 100 kids to do it, but it's sometimes a little dicey. Those of you who are the club reps, please look at these registration reports and make sure that your students have completed it. And if not, please contact them and urge them to do so.
I have another question, if you don't mind me interrupting.
Nope.
So from Carl Chrisman, I hope I'm saying your name right, Carl. Do you have campers who are homeschooled or otherwise in an alternative program to the traditional high school setting?
Absolutely.
And so
every year we've had homeschool students.
And how do you qualify them as far as being juniors? How does that happen?
Well, my own daughter is a homeschool student, and most homeschool programs designate students as freshmen, sophomores, or juniors, just like the high schools do. So, I mean, if there's some gray areas, we'll work with you. It's the student's 16 and a half years old, and the homeschool program doesn't specifically designate whether he or she is a sophomore or junior. We can work on that.
Mm-hmm. And I have a comment. Lisa Westerland from Tonopah said they sent a homeschooler last year, so it is happening. Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Pretty much every year, every camp, there are at least a couple of homeschool students.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, do we have another slide? Or are we looking for questions or comments?
More questions and comments. I did have a note from Angela early on, and Angela said that if anybody needs help in District 5180 getting a hold of RYLA alumni, they just can contact her at angela.spease, S-P-E-A-S-E, @gmail.com. Although I bet most of you know how to reach Angela, if I'm right.
And her email address is also listed on the Rotary Chair site.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, and Kim Mazaris just wanted to chime in that we also accept students from alternative high schools.
Yes.
Thank you, Kim.
And we've even had some special needs students over the years.
Okay. Any other questions? You guys have done a great job asking questions along the way, so thank you very much for your active participation. Anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to thank all of you for participating. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully the recording of this webinar will be listened to by thousands of people in the years to come. And thanks very much to Vicki for making it all possible.
And thank all of you for participating. You will get an email in about an hour. It will have the contact information for Steve Singer and for Joe Donahue in case you have other questions. And I also put the RYLA websites for you, both the one that you want to share with campers and parents and school counselors, and also the Rotarian-only website that you should keep for your own use because it has information on questions you might ask in an interview situation or things like that that are better for the campers not to have ahead of time. So thank you very much. Really appreciate all of you being here.